Hello everyone, it's Dan. Today I'm going to be getting my ghillies ready for the upcoming bagpipe competition season, and I was asked if I could record my process and how I get them up to a mirror shine finish. As you can see, this is what my shoes look like at the end from last season. Lots of cracks, lots of gaps in the polish. They're pretty rough looking. Got a number of scuffs on them and creases, but we're going to go through and I will show you how I get these back up to performance ready standards. First thing I'm going to do is put some shoe horns in them. These serve a multitude of purposes. Number one is they give you something firm to work against while you are polishing the shoe, and they also help maintain the leather on them in its overall shape. Today we're going to be using saddle soap to get them cleaned and stripped. There's a number of varieties of methods out there that you can use to strip the old polish off of your shoes. I find that this is the easiest on the leather of the shoe, and it kind of helps recondition it as well. There are other methods out there, including using some strippers. We're going to be using a shoe applicator brush for this process, but you can use a number of things like different polish strippers that are available commercially, or I've also seen people use straight acetone, which I recommend as a last resort if you can't get it off any other way, because it can damage the shoe. So right now what I'm doing is I'm taking a horsehair brush and I am scrubbing all the dirt off of the shoe, and I'm sure you can see in the camera the dirt flying off, and already from one shoe to the other you can see a discernible difference in the overall look of the shoe by just brushing all of this off. And the reason that I'm doing this is when I go to shine them, I don't want any dirt buildup on the actual shoe itself, because then it's just going to scratch the finish up. It's going to make it harder to shine them up. So right now what I'm doing is I'm going to the sink and I'm getting the brush a little moist, so that I can apply it into the saddle soap dish and work up a nice lather to the shoe. Okay, so now that I have wet my applicator brush, I'm going to work it into the saddle soap dish to kind of get a nice little lather going, and then we're just going to apply it to the shoe and get a good scrub on all surfaces. I'm using about a medium to heavy pressure here, because I really want to get the soap worked into all the little crevices and nooks and crannies. And the idea here is before we apply new layers of polish to the shoe, we want to get all the old polish off. And the other thing, particularly with the ghillies, is it has all these little holes in it. So we want to make sure we clean all the dirt and dust out of there as well. So we're just going to speed up the process a little bit here so you don't have to watch everything in slow motion. After I soap it all up, I'm going to take a clean chamois cloth and I'm just going to wipe the shoe off, soap and all. And you can see on the cloth I am actually taking the old polish off, and I'll show you here after a while what that is going to look like. So gently just work around the shoe itself and just scrub all that old polish off. Now, if for whatever reason it's not coming off with the saddle soap, then you can start applying a more aggressive method, like a commercial leather polish remover that either sold by Kiwi or Sapphire, or using the acetone. But I highly recommend not using the acetone. I've heard from a lot of other people that they use a hair dryer on low heat that can also melt some stubborn spots of polish off and get and then let it wipe off that way. That's another method too if you want, but you run the risk of damaging the leather. So as you can see there, the polish is coming off quite easily with the saddle soap on its own. And now I'm just kind of working and getting the soap out of all the little crevices and holes in the shoe as well. So now we're going to do the other shoe just as the same as we did the first one, getting a good, nice, rich lather worked up on it. And if you feel like you're not taking the polish off with one go around, you can definitely do the saddle soap more than once. And you can definitely see already the difference in getting all of this dirt, dust, grit, grime along with it off on the shoe that's sitting on the desk there. So now I've stripped all the polish off, and you can see how much is on that rag there. It definitely took a considerable amount off of the shoe. And I know that I am down to the base leather because if you look at the shoe itself, you can see the grain of the leather. And you can also see any, every, and all crease and crack that has formed in these shoes over the years. I've worn these for about 7 years now. And I wanted to highlight here, if you look closely at this hole that I'm showing you, there's a little bit of leftover shoe polish in there and in the other one. You can get in with a toothpick and scrape those out. But you really just want to make sure that you're down to the base of the leather and you can see the grain. If you see on the toe of that shoe there, there's a dent in it, and I'll show you here after a while how to get that dent out so that it, because it can affect the shine up process. So now I'm going to let these set overnight and let them fully dry. And now I'm going to come back, it's now the next day. These have sat overnight and completely dried. Go Bucks. And now the next step in my process is I'm going to use a leather conditioner. When we use saddle soap, we strip off all of the natural oils from the leather. So now we have to recondition it. And I'm going to be using a Sapphire brand leather reconditioner. You can get this in specific colors. I just picked the neutral one just so it was easy so I could use it on more than one pair of shoes. I'm going to put gloves on for this just because I don't know if I really should be handling this with my bare hands, number one, and number two, I just don't really want to have the mess. Now this stuff is pretty soft. It comes out really thick. You do not need a lot on your finger for this part of the process. A little bit goes a long way, and what I have on my finger now is probably way too much, but I'm going to spread it out over quite a big portion of the shoe. Okay, so through the magic of editing, we're just going to go ahead and speed up this process. I'm going to continue to add the cream in thin layers over the shoe, both of the shoes really, and at the end I'm going to take my horsehair brush again and I'm going to go over the shoes. And what I'm doing with that is I want to make sure it's evenly distributed and I want to make sure I fill in all the cracks and gaps. Now here you can see that compared to when I stripped them, the creases in the shoes look a lot more filled in. They're a lot more flush with the surface of the leather. And you can see that the cream is kind of sitting on the surface. So the next step here after this is I'm going to let these sit again overnight so that I can make sure that that leather conditioning cream gets good and soaked into the shoe. And so we will come back and see you tomorrow. Okay, so it's the next day again, and I told you earlier that I was going to show you how to get the dent out of this shoe. Now, I don't know how this dent got in there. I don't remember it getting in there. It could have been sitting in a bag wrong. I could have had something stepped on my toe. I don't know. But what I'm doing here is I'm going to take my wife's hair dryer and I'm going to put my hand inside the shoe. And while I am on low heat, I am applying pressure on the inside of the shoe to push the dent out in an effort to get the heat to make the leather more malleable and to get it to stay popped out. So I don't want to keep it concentrated in one spot. You can see where I might have had a little bit of that old polish that's still on there that you can see is getting super shiny and melting. So I will wipe that off here as well before we start shining it up. But this is one of those methods that I was talking about in terms of stripping. You can use a hairdryer and you can see here how it is melting the shoe. So I will show you here how it looks afterwards, and you can see the difference of before and after. Okay, so now we are at the main event of what we all came to see today is the actual shining process. So again, I'm going to put on some rubber gloves because I'm going to be directly handling this stuff. And I don't want this to get on my skin. There's two main products that I'm going to be using today. I use the Sapphire brand of shoe polish, and I use two different kinds. I use the Sapphire Pat Deluxe, which is the blue tin, which I will show you here in a moment so you can get a good look at it. You don't have to use this. You can use kiwi shoe polish, but I find that the Pat Deluxe is a lot softer, has a lot more moisture to it, a lot more cream. It applies easier, and it doesn't clump up. The other stuff that I'm using is the Sapphire Mirror Gloss. If you use Kiwi products, which you very well can, this is equivalent to the Kiwi Parade Shine Parade Gloss finish, and I will show you how to use that here after a while. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking a finger and I am dabbing it into the Pat Deluxe polish, and I'm just very lightly, very thinly covering the shoe in layers of polish. And this is one of the slower parts of the polishing process. I'm going to do this approximately 10 times. You want to cover the entire shoe with a minimum of 10 layers. If you feel so inclined, you can do more, but for this purpose today, I'm just going to do 10. So let's just speed it up a little bit so we don't have to watch me do the same thing over and over and over again, but just remember light layers completely covering all aspects of the shoe. One thing I wanted to come back to that I didn't remember to add earlier was the use of the shoe horns. I bought those on Amazon. You can get them at any real fine shoe retailer. But any time that I am not wearing my ghillies, the shoe horns are in there. They are made out of cedar wood, and cedar is a very unique wood in its ability to absorb odors and absorb moisture. So if you've been at a Highland Games all day and your shoes are nice and sweaty and gross, you can take them off, pop those shoe horns in there, and it will help your shoes retain their shape and condition. Now, before I wanted to show you is that before we go to the actual shining part of it, I want you to take that horsehair brush over the shoe again to make sure that everything is well and equally distributed. We are going to let the shoe sit for approximately 10 minutes to let that polish dry. Then we will move on to the next stage. So here I have a polishing cloth. I am putting it on my finger, two fingers, wrapping it around and twisting it and grabbing the excess in my palm. In that lid, I am putting a little bit of water in there and tapping off the excess. You just want it a little bit damp. And now we are going into the process of shining, or some people call it bulling. And what I'm doing is doing one tap on the Pat Deluxe, and then I'm doing one tap onto the mirror gloss. And then we're just applying it in small semicircular motions all over the shoe. And you can see how much it's already shining up based off of what I have and haven't done. And you're going to continue to do this. This is going to be the most time consuming part, is building this up to a shine. Now, eventually, this cloth is going to dry out. So when that happens, you will be able to tell. You will start getting a lot of resistance against the cloth as you are working. So if you are, it should be smooth. You should not be having to apply a lot of pressure here. So what you're going to need to do is just take one finger, and I know it's sped up here and it might be a little hard to see, but you just take one finger and dip it in the water that's in the lid of the tin, and take one drop and drop it onto the shoe. That's all you need, is a drop of water. And just keep working all around until you start to get the mirror shine. And it will pop. It will really, really pop out. You'll notice that all of a sudden it will start to turn crystal clear. That's when you know you're getting close. So now what I'm doing is I am taking a clean old t-shirt, and it's dry, and I am buffing the entire surface of the shoe, and I'm using a considerable amount of pressure here. And basically I am just trying to buff out any, every, and all of the smudges left over. What you will find as you get towards the end of the shining process is that you will need less and less polish as you go, and it will start to leave some smudges. And that's when I switched to the dry cloth to get that final mirror shine. And you can see the difference here. The shoe on the left is the finished shoe, and you can see, hi, that is a mirror shine. If you can see yourself in the shoe, that is your mirror shine. Now I could keep going and get this to be like super, super glossy, but these shoes look pretty darn good on their own, especially when you compare it to the other shoe, which I have not done yet. Now here is both shoes done together, and I wanted to illustrate a point on this, is that on the first shoe I used a microfiber polishing cloth from Kiwi. You don't have to do that. You could use just the old t-shirt. And the second shoe I did with the t-shirt, and you can see there's really no discernible difference to the two. And one thing I wanted to add, while you are polishing, you want to make sure that you are rotating your fingers around the shirt itself, and you're not staying in one spot during the entire polish. You will feel and you will see that when you are working in the new polish and it is beginning to not shine up in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, it's time to move to a clean spot on the cloth. And here is the finished product. I hope this helps, and look forward to seeing those nice shiny shoes during the competition season this year. If you have any questions, or if you're having trouble, just feel free to drop me a line here on the group page or via email or text. Hey everybody, I wanted to take a minute and kind of give a little afterthought here, add on to the video. I know that whole thing was a long drawn out process and it seems very overwhelming, but I wanted to let you know that I do not do that every single time I shine my shoes. I maybe do that whole process once a year. So if you are between gigs, between a competition, all you need to do, if your shoes just don't have the same kind of shine to them still, is just do the first step and the last step. So make sure you get all the dirt and dust off of them real quick, and you're using that horsehair brush. You don't have to use a horsehair brush if you don't have it. You can use just a clean towel to get that off. You just want to make sure that you don't reshine them with it dirty, and then go straight into the polish. Getting a little water in the lid of the tin, getting your cloth wrapped around the two fingers, a little water, a little polish, a little mirror gloss, and start right into the shoe. And you will be surprised that the more you do this as the season goes on, the quicker and the shinier the shoe will get. Now, obviously, if the shoes just get trashed, you get caught in some inclement weather. Um, they get super muddy, super tore up, super scratched, then yeah, you'll have to take it down and start all over again. But like some quick fixes, like if you just have a little bit of cracks in the polish, um, you can use the hair dryer method on low and just kind of go over it to warm it up and remelt it into those cracks, and then go back into the shining. But you do not have to do that whole process every single time. In between gigs during the season, 10-15 minutes max is what you will need to get them back to performance ready. So I hope this helps. I hope that calms some anxiety there, and we'll see you guys around. Okay, bye.